Tonight, it's the Progressive Army Takeover. Join us as we discuss all of the major news for the day. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show. Ladies and gentlemen, let's do this.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
All right, folks. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. And no, I am not your host, Benjamin Dixon. I am J.P. Rankin, who's coming around and hanging out with Ben on the Progressive Army Takeover night of the Benjamin Dixon Show. We come here tonight to just talk about the issues, to hear what you have to say, to get your feedback, but most importantly, to make sure that the progressive ideals that are running through us all are being heard and that we're out here in the public doing this. We have a couple of guests with us tonight, and we're happy to have them here. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves since they're here, and then we'll let our leading host come in and take it in. Go ahead, JP. Come on, let's go.
All right, so let's go with Pamela. Pamela, you're up. Just introduce yourself to the people.
Hello, I'm Pamela Lane. I've done a couple of articles for Mr. Benjamin on the Progressive Army page. And just a little bit of background, mother of three, and just activist, and want to make sure, like the gentleman just said, we want to make sure that these ideas are getting out here and being heard.
Where are you from, Pamela?
West Virginia, West by God representing.
Yeah. Let's go down to go up to New York. Will, where you? Tell us about yourself.
Hey, I'm Will Cahill. I actually live in upstate New York now. I've lived in Atlanta, Georgia. I've lived in Alabama, where I went to school. I've lived in Rochester, New York, and now I'm in a rural area. I sell cars, and I use logic to win people over to my point of view for a living.
Manipulate people to buy cars.
Yeah, I manipulate for cash. I'm a whore. So.
I am yours truly, Benjamin Dixon. I almost didn't even cut my lights on tonight because I wanted the Progressive Army. This is just a few of them. A lot more are coming in. We'll have about 6 to 10 people in here tonight. We're going to have a crowd tonight. So we just wanted to do another hangout like we did, discussing the issues. So the assignment was I gave everybody a chance to bring an article that was important to them, and we wanted to discuss that article. When they discuss their article, they're in charge. They get to pose the questions. They'll take the phone calls. You can still join the conversation, 857-600-0518. This is the Benjamin Dixon Show, but more importantly, this is the Progressive Takeover. I'm throwing this back over to my boy J.P. Rankin so he can start talking about what's going on in Flint, Michigan.
Hey, okay, folks, so just so you know, I am born and raised in Flint, Michigan, and I know we are now considered the lead capital of the world. If you have been watching, especially MSNBC, I want to give a shout-out to Rachel Maddow, who literally allowed this plight that we've been fighting over the course of the last few years to come to light on the national level. For those of you who don't know, in a cost-saving move, our governor, the Honorable Rick Snyder, and his emergency managers decided that it was cheaper for Flint to get its water from the Flint River versus getting it from where we had been from Detroit, which is we're actually getting it from Lake Huron. If most of you don't know, around the Great Lakes state, we have probably the largest bodies of fresh water in the world, yet we're getting water from a local river. And it was all done because of money. It wasn't done because the people wanted to. Because of the emergency manager law, the people of Flint haven't had a voice in many years. The state even voted against it, and they still turned around, and the governor passed another law which allowed the emergency manager to take over and literally what they say go. We are no longer in a democracy, and this is definitely not a theocracy. This is a monarchy where King Rick tell us what we want to happen, and they do what they believe is best from a financial standpoint. And don't get me wrong, folks, I understand that you need to live within your budget. You need to balance. You need to understand that you can live for more. You can't spend more than you're taking in. But there are a lot of cities that are running into deficits, and especially cities like Flint, who are a part of the Rust Belt, where manufacturing went and left, and we end up here, where we lost our base. At our heyday, we had 85,000 General Motors jobs in our community, and now we're down to 8,500. And if you think about that, that was a lot of people who didn't have to have a lot of education but could make a lot of money. And so this all leads us to the lead. And I really wanted to set it up because I don't want anybody thinking when you see our mayor, Dr. Karen Weaver, on TV, that there were more things that she could do. She actually ran on the platform of calling us a national disaster area. And so literally, for the last about 18 months or so, we've been drinking water that has been tainted. It all started once they switched from Detroit water to Flint River water. The people started complaining. They started talking about discoloration. They started talking about itching. They started talking about different things. Nobody said a word. The people's voices didn't matter. It kept going on, and the people continued. The voice began to get louder and louder, and yet still no one wanted to listen to the people. They didn't want to hear them. A group of concerned pastors, actually called the Concerned Pastors for Social Action, and other water activists began to come together and raise a stink because the water actually stunk. Nobody did anything about it. And lo and behold, it got to the point where a doctor began to see that there were elevated levels of lead in children.
Wow.
And they still didn't do anything, folks. We had a MacArthur scholar come in from Virginia Tech on his own dime, drove all the way from Virginia Tech to Flint and tested the water and said that there is something wrong here. To make a long story short, river water and lake water cannot be treated the same way. Had they done the treatment formula right, had our state level people who looked over the water understood what was going on, if the people who were actually switching us over understood, we could have nipped this at the bud. But what ended up happening, as they put these new chemicals in the pipes leached lead. Wow. And when they leached the lead went in the water. So not only did we eat it, we bathed in it, we cooked in it, we made formula out of it, and lo and behold, all of our children, they believe under the age of 6, have been exposed. They said some were 2 times more lead than other people in Flint, others 3 times more lead than people in Flint. And just so y'all know, lead don't go away. Lead is a death sentence.
Wow.
These kids are going to have all kind of problems, cognitive problems, learning disabilities. I mean, this is going on. Now, they found out that in the last few months, we've had 10 people from Genesee County die of Legionnaire's disease.
Wow.
Which we hadn't had any. And they believe that it goes back to the water. And so they're working on that right now. And the article that I brought forward that I wanted the Progressive Army to look at is that we had Representative Brenda Lawrence, who used to be the mayor of Southfield, who now represents the area, who wants the leaders of the Oversight and Government Reform Committee to hold hearings on this, because this is just bad, y'all. I don't know what other way to put it, but it's simply to the point where without the larger voices coming in, the people have been squashed.
Let me ask you a question then. I've been following this from a distance. How long did it take for this to go from okay to catastrophe? And couldn't they find, wasn't there enough time? How the hell did this happen?
It happens when you lose your democracy. When we went to an emergency manager, literally, the emergency manager has the right to pass any law. They don't need the city council. They don't need any of our other elected officials can say anything. If the emergency manager say, sell all the pipes, which they did. They sold the one pipe that was connected to the Detroit water to a new water authority because they're doing some regionalization stuff here. And it got so, and it was just to the point where they didn't care. And this is why when I put on my tag, poverty loses its voice, because we're in Flint, because we don't have a lot of money, because we were in financial receivership. No one has really heard our cry. People have been crying since they switched the water, but nobody hears the despair of the poor. And this is what, go ahead, I'm sorry, I'll stop right there.
No problem, because actually I still want you to lead the conversation, but I have some serious questions, right? I remember when he went to the emergency manager of the state, or was it just of this, it was a state emergency manager, right?
He reports to the governor, but he's over particular areas. Like we have an emergency manager in Flint over the city. There's an emergency manager, I believe, in Highland Park. There's an emergency manager that's over the Detroit public school system. So he uses emergency managers in areas where there are financial distresses, and they have these triggers that kick them in. And then they become king.
And so his decision to get water from the river and not treat it correctly ultimately has led to how many kids, what's the estimated reach of this effect on the children?
Right now they said they've had about 6,000 kids tested, and they said that with a higher level of lead. But again, you have to understand that a lot of the kids haven't even been tested.
Wow.
I mean, and Ben, I'm gonna say this, and I know this sounds asinine, but this is the truth. There are people who still drinking this water.
Come on, man.
They have never. The only thing they gave us was filters to filter the water that's coming out of the sink. They never did anything about the filters that you shower in. People ain't really. You can't bathe in this. And we ate here. People who worked in the city. You worked there. You played there. You ate there. You lived there. And you partook of this. So they're really worried about the more vulnerable populations, the young and the elderly.
Okay, so here's what I'm ultimately trying to get, and I don't know if you know or if anyone knows. How long did they know this was a problem before they decided to try to fix the problem, if they've even started to try to fix the problem?
Well, you've had some estimates that they've known since the beginning of, somewhere around the beginning of 2015, that there was some issues going on. But remember, even the doctor who did the study, she tested like 1,000 kids because she worked at a children's clinic. They didn't even believe her. They called her a quack. Here she is, a pediatrician, and they call her a quack. They said she used quack science. So it's been going on since about the beginning of the year, and then it's been picking up momentum and more momentum. And yet, get this, y'all, the state has still not set up water stations. What they did is that they have people who've been donating water to Flint. And so what they've been going around doing is finding people who got the donated water from people who donated, and the state has the governor has dispatched the National Guard to go pass it out. But the state has not spent its own dime because, again, we're in receivership. Anything that happens to us falls to whoever is running the city, and who's running the city is the governor. So, but the governor, he still hasn't declared a state of emergency yet. So FEMA and other monies can become available for us because we're just like them folks. I believe that it happened was it West Virginia, where they actually had that spill.
Yes.
And they had them water buffaloes and those things like that out there for people to get water from. We have none of that. If people are not giving out of the kindness of their heart, we don't have water.
And so you feel, and I don't think it's a matter of what you feel. I think you've demonstrated that this is directly connected to the fact that they implemented basically a dictatorship from this emergency manager to control the region that was hard up on funds already. I remember when this came down. This was less than 2 years ago that this emergency manager kicked in. Was it 2-3 years ago?
Emergency manager laws, I'm not even going to put that on Rick Snyder, started under actually Jennifer Granholm, who is one of the surrogates for Hillary Clinton. But what it was is that they only went to the area of need. So if you had a problem in your say your transportation department, an emergency manager could come and make sure that part was okay, but the rest of city government was still governed by the people. Rick Snyder put it on steroids.
Wow.
and they made it so that literally what they say go. And then the people from the state repealed the law. And he turned around in the lame duck section and added a spending bill to it, so that with a spending bill in the state of Michigan, you can't recall a spending bill. So anything that got money attached to it, you're stuck with it. And so I'm grateful for that. Our other Congressman Dale Kildee, from our area, has really been pushing to get some federal oversight here. And this is how bad it is, to let you know. FEMA has already sent people here. They're just waiting on the governor. They're just waiting on the governor so that they can dispatch all of the assets that and the White House is watching it as well. But the governor will not give it a go.
Still acting like nothing has happened. FEMA researchers have come in, tests have been done. It's clearly evident in the water itself, and the governor is still acting like an ostrich with his head in the sand.
And you have to look at this, folks. I was wondering why he pulled his name out of running for president. He was on the short list to run for president because of all of the Republican-led things that he was able to accomplish here. And lo and behold, all of a sudden he just pulled back. And I believe that he pulled back because as they were doing the vetting, they began to see that some of this stuff was going to come to a head and come out sooner or later.
Wow. Patrick, I mean, JP, where we going? Where we going by, JP or Patrick?
Hey, I'll answer to anything. Hey, you will even work tonight.
Hey, you, what are your closing thoughts for that, and give us some closing thoughts on that?
My closing thought is simply this. I want us to always remember that there are people around this country who are wondering why the citizens of Flint are not standing up, are not fighting back. But I'm here to let you know that sometimes your arms just simply get tired. This city has been beaten so many times over so many different things that literally apathy has begun to set in, even when what is happening to them is actually killing us.
Wow.
We're dying. But I want you to understand that we still need other people to come around to encourage us to continue the good fight, to not give up on us so that we won't give up on ourselves. And that's what my hope is for my city, that with the help of others like the Progressive Army, like the Ben Dixon Show, we'll get the word out and say that, you know what, this city is worth fighting for. This city is worth restoring. This city is worth rebuilding. This city can still be Flint.
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, that's JP Rankin. He is one of my chiefs that I go to with the Progressive Army. He's the guy that I want you to get in touch with if you want to be active in the Progressive Army. The Progressive Army is an actual group of people, and it is growing. It's not a small clique. It is anyone who is a progressive person that is ready to fight back, but not just with anything, with truth and knowledge. JP Rankin, thanks so much for that, man.
Hey, thank you, man. It was great to have the opportunity to share. All right, now we got others from the Progressive Army who want to come and want to just share. So I just want to throw it out there. Somebody stick your hand up and we'll go from you. Introduce yourself and let's hear what article you have and what you want to bring forward for the people from the Ben Dixon Show to hear this evening.
Can I expound on what JP just talked about?
Well, you know, since you're talking to JP, go ahead.
Okay. So in the 1970s, there was a scientist, Claire Patterson, and I shared this on Twitter. And what she was trying to determine was the age of the Earth. And to do so, she needed to find a room that was sterile, completely sterile. And what she found was that was next to impossible because of the infiltration of lead within the entirety of the world. That's what led to them unleading gasoline. There is a history of paid scientists that will deny currently accepted science. Mm-hmm. So that's been happening for a long time now. But now, not only do you have scientists that are willing to be shills for these corporations that are willing to pay them pittances to pollute our environment and put us in danger, but you also have the collusion of the money in politics that feeds into that allows for stuff like this that is obviously way out there. They used to sell Dutch Boy and say, hey, a little bit of lead will do you some good. Scientists agree. They don't do that now. Now it's just right out there. You see brown water, and it's disgusting. So this is nothing new. It's just been brought to the light of day, but it's been made worse because of the corruption that's systemic within the political system that we talk about all the time. So I thought that was a great article, and I saw it earlier today. I'm glad you brought it up because that's all I could think of was that study in the 70s that, hey, lead's killing people. Let's get him out of the bus. So, but now lead's back again? What else are they putting in our water that might be killing us? Is fluoride bad for me?
Hey.
How would I know? So that's all I had to say.
Cool.
Appreciate the feedback, Will. I really do. Come on, Ben.
Let me do a little housekeeping really quick. Okay, so everyone, if you could, if possible, I don't want you to lose the connection, but if possible, I want to make sure that you are connected to a hard line. Unless you're on a mobile device, Pam, you're fine. If you can be connected to a landline to make sure your audio is as strong as possible, and try to get your device in a stationary position so it's not shaking back and forth. All right, I'm out the picture. JP, is in your hand.
All right, all right. So, you know, because we're the Progressive Army, we don't call names, we raise hands. So who gonna be the next one up to speak on their article and share with the Ben Dixon Show?
All right, I'll go.
All right, come on now.
All right, so my article was about when does childhood end and adulthood begin? And I found this article on The Atlantic, and it was just an interesting piece on the ambiguity that we deal with on when do we consider someone to be an adult and when does that transition happen? And the issues that come up is that in cases of, unfortunately, murder, pedophilia. I'm in a debate group, and one of my fellow admins in the group just happened to mention that after the passing of David Bowie, that he had been accused of having relations with a young lady when she was like 14 or 15 years old back in the 70s. And everyone went ballistic, and it came down to a discussion of, but when does this child have that opportunity? When does that child own his or her own body and can make those adult decisions about that sort of thing? And we have so much ambiguity in our society on that topic, just in our laws. I mean, for instance, you can't buy alcohol until you're 21, but you can join the military at 18 and buy cigarettes at 18. You can start working at 14, and you can go see adult movies at 17 without supervision. So we don't have any sort of consensus to work with. But what that ends up doing is that it leaves a lot of leeway for our justice system to kind of pick and choose who they, determine to be an adult at certain times. And when it comes to sentencing, people of color, especially African Americans, are sentenced harsher at a younger age because of this ambiguity.
Because we're seen older than what we really are.
Right. And one of the things the article picked up, it says, what sort of markers should we use to determine that you have crossed over into adulthood? And one of the things that it mentioned was our physical bodies. And I have to say that typically, or generally, I should say, not typically, but generally, African American people tend to be a little bigger, a little more muscular, maybe a little taller, a little heavier. So we're visually seen as more adult even when we're children, because when we see Tamir Rice in that video, those of us here in this room probably saw a child. But the general public looks at that and sees a teenager, a man. I mean that was a child, but his physical stature, we'll hear it talks about when the police officer makes his report. And let me just say, I say the police officer makes his report because it sounds like they all use the same report. He was huge, he was big, he was coming at me, and it's always the same thing. So if we're always seen as adults, we lose that innocence of childhood, and when our children are getting in trouble, they are punished at a harsher rate. I'm looking at numbers from this Fair Sentencing for Youth organization. Back in 2009, they reported that 84% of the people with life, or that were sentenced to life without parole, were African American. And then one of the other terms that they use, and I want you to listen to the wording on this, is life without the possibility of parole. and these children have just been thrown away because they aren't seen as children. They are not given that leeway. And it said something like in 2005 that when they looked in the justice system, we're seeing that equally 25% of the I hate to say, or people committing crimes or whatever are white, and 25 were black. But only 9.6% of the white children ended up being sentenced as adults. Over a third of the black children are being sentenced as adults and getting these sentences of life with parole or life or without parole or life without the possibility of parole. I mean, that means that's the point of no return for a child.
So, Pam, you mind if I jump in there?
Go right ahead.
Okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that it's the concept of, in general, it's a societal framework where we decide that a certain person is a certain age and they're capable, and not a numerical age, but a mental age where they're capable of being responsible for themselves and responsible for those actions. And so I hear you connecting the David Bowie thing. We talked about that at length on my show. Actually, one of my Progressive Army members really pushed back on my hypocrisy. But anyway, I digress. We talked about that because here he is as an adult, almost in his 21, 22 at the time, messing with a child that's 14, and in certain circumstances we allow that to slide because of our perception of the girl in that incident. We may see her as being older, and then you're saying that in another scenario altogether that could be deadly for a young black guy who is seen older. So what is your main takeaway from that? Should we view, are we even capable of viewing people as children simply by how they look? What do we take from it?
Well, my thought is that we probably need to start a system when our children are going to the doctor to begin with, that we start looking at their maturity level. Just like when there's a trial, when something happens, then you want to bring psychologists in and jump in and try to take 2 or 3 little psychologist meetings and determine the maturity level of this child, as opposed to us following that child from birth to whenever, so that we have an idea of that individual child's mental state that we can go back and follow a trail on, as opposed to letting the justice system come in at an inopportune moment and just decide if that particular person should be considered a child or an adult under the circumstances. If we have this record that we can track back from birth on, now we have a better understanding of where that individual is, and then we have something that we can focus on and take the focus off of skin color.
Okay, so let me unpack what you're saying then. All right, okay. So are you saying that in cases of statutory let's say consent for sex, statutory rape cases, that should be viewed on an individual basis instead of a blanket cutoff at the age of 17 or 18?
I do, and part of the reason for that is that I'm a mother of 2 daughters, but I'm a mother of a son. I was also a 14-year-old girl who ended up marrying at 17 the guy she started dating at 14. And looking at the difference in myself at 14, my 2 daughters at 14, and my son at 14, you've got 4 different people. It's not a blanket answer. And what ends up happening, unfortunately, is that our young black men are put in jail when they're boys based on something that is so arbitrary. And we really need to get an understanding of where maturity comes from, and we can't just look at somebody's body. Someone's body can be very mature, and their brain is not there yet.
I agree with that 100%, that last thing you said, but doesn't that open up the door for like a reverse? Couldn't that amplify the problem if we say we're looking at them on an individual basis? Wouldn't it be
my thoughts exactly?
Wouldn't it be better for us to say, like in the case for young offenders, to say that we're not going to give anyone underneath the age of 18 a life sentence? versus saying, let's look at this on a one-by-one basis, and that opens the door for them to say, there were guys in Florida who are still in jail now, who went to jail when we were in high school because of they were playing around wrestling and they accidentally killed a girl in a wrestling match. And so they're serving life. But it's because they viewed them as an adult. It's like it's that discretion to try people as an adult. If we open up that door, couldn't it really make it worse?
I guess the problem that we're facing is that we don't know which way to turn that's going to make it any better for our community. And if we're going to throw down a blanket age, we run the risk of
Capturing
people, I mean, because where are we going to make that line?
So you're saying, like, if we throw it at 18, then we may get a 21-year-old who really is a 13-year-old in development.
Right, and then that young black man ends up in jail, and then we can reverse that. I mean, it's one of those things. If we're going to throw a line down, we better be very, very sure that line is going to work the majority of the time, and not be something that's so fluid that we can't just argue it away. And when I say that we need to keep a record from the medical standpoint, I don't mean that we'll go by that only. But I'm just saying so we have some sort of groundwork if and when the situation comes up.
Pam, I'm gonna mess with you for a second. Are you trying to?
I knew you would.
Are you trying to make room for David Bowie to be okay to have sex with that 14-year-old girl because of how mentally mature that girl was and how she was not only grown but really manipulative in making that sexual encounter happen? Are you saying that we should not care that she was 14? We need to look at the fact that she was an adult in her mind?
No, and I'm saying the opposite. As a feminist, it really flies in my face that we have to decide when someone actually owns their own body. And when is she allowed to make that call for herself? I did not read those articles that Kevin provided for us in group, so I don't really have a sense of where she was mentally at all.
Oh no, she was there. She was grown in her mind, right? She, without a doubt, like she was acting in the story. She was carrying herself like a 21-year-old woman, right? She was still a 14-year-old girl. I do like your question in terms of in the feminist framework. When does a human, not just a woman, but when does a human own their own body? And then I think we have to divide it also and say, when does a human and a person own their actions? Like, when can we treat their actions as a product of them as a person versus the product of them as a child who's in development? I think we have to separate, in my opinion, I would say we would have to separate those two things there and say that we would treat each of those differently, because I think you can have a I don't know, maybe it's the same thing, maybe it's not different. I don't know. My brain is just going right now.
Well, I mean, and it can go either way, but I mean, we really need to address it because we are so ambiguous in how we determine what that age should be. Because we'll look in the world. Go ahead, JP. I'm sorry.
What I was going to say is, I think you hit the nail on the head right there, because we want to look at this as an age, not a place, because age does not speak maturity. But yet, for us, we love numbers. We love concrete things. So we like to say that you can't get your driver's license before you're 16. And so we love the concreteness of it. And so anything that throws off our system where we can't compartmentalize it becomes a difficulty. And I agree. Especially with my children, I was a whole different type of child than the children that are growing up in this house. I'm just the truth. I'm just gonna tell the truth today. But the idea is that so I agree. I think it's something that we need to look at. The other part of it is that, do we trust science enough to help us with this? Especially because there is some stigma in the African American community as it comes to dealing with therapy, as it comes to people looking at us from that cognitive standpoint, and how do we move that issue forward?
And that's something else that we definitely need to get over, and that's a whole other topic, is the way we tend to shelter our mentally ill within our community, but then when they interact with the law, we can't be there to step in and protect them.
I want to ask the babyface killer that we have in the room. We have a young man who is quite the writer, and when I tell you his age, if it's okay, Will, for me to tell him your age, if not, just say no. But when I tell him your age, I don't want you guys to take him lightly, because when I tell you he is a killer writer, such that I brought him on the team because he's a writer. Is it okay if I tell him your age, Will?
Yeah, go ahead.
Will is 16 years old. And
No.
Nice.
the babyface rhetorical killer is what I call him.
Wow, I would have never guessed that from reading him. Your articles are wow, spot on.
Yeah, he is great. I mean, he was up at 1 o'clock this morning writing about what happened in Jakarta, in Indonesia with ISIS, and was ready to publish at 1:50 in the morning, and I was asleep. So yeah, so it didn't get published at 8 a.m. But anyway, that's besides the point. I want to throw it over to Will. Tell me what you think about this thing about. Do you feel that it should be a cutoff age, that age and nothing more, or do you feel like in you and your friends and people at your school, their development, that is so different that we need to look at it at a more nuanced level versus a hard line?
Okay, well, to be quite honest with you, I was only half listening to the conversation, but from what I'm understanding, hey, I'm 16. But from what I'm understanding and I'm listening, I think that there shouldn't be a solid cutoff line for this sort of stuff, you know. I mean, there's always going to be some sort of influx on every situation. Every situation needs to be looked at individually, and so there can't just be blanket statements like I think someone else was saying. There just can't be blanket solutions, because not everything is completely not every situation is exactly the same. I mean, that goes for so many things in life. You can't just do that.
So you feel, so you feel like if you take a sample of your classmates, right? Let's take a sample of all the people in your school. You feel that cutting everyone off at saying 16 to drive or 18 to smoke or 21 to drink, that there's so much variations in it that cutoff is almost useless, and it doesn't really okay, here it is. It's going to hold some people back that are ready to go further, and then it's going to let some people go who aren't ready yet. Is that kind of what you feel?
Yeah, but I mean, that's also very hard to that's hard to implement. You can't, say, okay, this person's ready to drive and this person is not. This person's ready to drink, this person is not. So I think that when you're doing this stuff, you really just need. I mean, you can't apply it in those sorts of situations all the time, but
you're
Well,
fine.
here's where I'm going with this, and let me just say, if we had a hard line and we stuck to it, and we said, okay, anyone under the age of 25 is sentenced this way, and everyone's 25 and over.
No, BS. That can't be the case.
Bear with me a second.
Yeah.
And everyone over 25 is sentenced that way, and that line stayed a solid line across the board.
Yeah.
We would have less of an issue. But what tends to happen is because we don't want our justice system to become inflexible, where a judge can't make an individual call on a case. But then what happens is that when that person in front of the judge is a person of color or a person of a certain financial stature, not having the representation in court, then there's this adjusting that happens anyway on an individual basis. It begins to bite us in the end more so. So if we either need that hard line and it needs to not be able to move, and then we get into a scary place with our justice system where a judge can't bring compassion into the courtroom.
Yeah.
Let me jump in.
I think I see two things here.
Hold on for a second,
yeah.
Will.
Go ahead.
Hold on for a second, Ben. This is the progressive takeover, and I'm taking over. Ben, hit the applause button.
I don't have. Let me see if I can find one. Hang on.
It's broken, I thought.
Can we clap? Can we clap, y'all? Pam, great article, great. All right. Hey, listen, my name is JP, and my job today is to watch the clock, and we want to make sure we get all these Army soldiers have an opportunity to get their stuff out here. So let's keep this thing rolling. So come on, y'all. You know how we do it. Progressive Army, put your hand up. Who next?
I guess I'll go since I'm already have my mic unmuted.
Okay,
So,
come on in, Will.
all right. So I just chose my own article I wrote a few weeks ago. I didn't have time to read the news this morning, so I just chose something I actually know about. So, I mean, what would a progressive talk show be, if, without talking about Bernie a little bit? You need a little bit of that. So, when I wrote this, Bernie had just surpassed 2.5 million donors to his campaign, individual donors, and they were $25 on average for each donation. And if you look at him in the polls, he's doing fantastic. He has what Hillary has, over 100 million in her campaign. He has, 16 million or something. He's kicking ass for what he's got to work with. And so I just thought this was amazing when it came out. This came out the day after the last debate of the year. That he can do all of this with so much less than she has to work with. Like I said, you look at the polls, and he's within a point of her in the Iowa caucus, and he's leading in New Hampshire, and he's not far behind in the national polls. So he's really catching up. For I mean, for the last month, I've been thinking, he might pull it out, he might not, but I'm feeling more confident in him as of recent. Just he's shown more growth, and it's a whole nother topic I'm not going to get into. That I feel like some polls are kind of hiding what the real statistics are. I feel like some of them, they're only doing landlines, they're only contacting, certain demographics, so they're kind of messing with the statistics that they put out. So that's a whole nother topic, though.
Gotcha. Hey, Will, got a question for you. My question would be this. Here we have a 70-plus-year-old man who is somehow connected with this kid who can't vote yet. How does Bernie meet you there and get you excited about politics right now?
Well, for a number of reasons. I'll just name the biggest.
Sure.
It's very personal. I'm going to college soon, and I need to be able to go to college, and my family is a bunch of my parents are both classically trained musicians, and I think as Ben knows, since he was worked as one for a while at least, you don't make a lot of money when you're a musician. I'm gonna have to find all the scholarships I can get to get to college. So I see this, and I see other people who go to my school, and I know that there's so many people who want to do so much good, and they just don't have the financial means to do so. That's one of the biggest reasons. I just want to see change across the board, and I know that Hillary Clinton is not going to be the person who's going to be getting that done. I see her as somebody who's going to keep the status quo, as Ben always likes to say. I want to see change, and to be honest, who doesn't when they're my age? So.
Understood. Come on, Will. I know you wanted to say something. Come on in.
Yeah, how's the mic situation now? I hardlined and I plugged in an actual microphone. Is this better?
Great. You look like a sports commentator. Come on.
Well, this is Will Cahill coming to you live from Shea Stadium. No. So, I really like what Will has to say. You're worried about how you're going to have to pay for college, and Bernie really does speak to that. Now, what you're going to run into is the opposition when you bring that point up, if you're trying to sell Bernie to other people. Do you know the numbers and the breakdown of how much it will save the American people if free public education, well, tuition at least, is going to cost versus how much we already pay in subsidizing these loans and all the money that already goes out? Because if you know those numbers, then when you bring up that point, which is a great point, public education should be free for all, but then they make that, well, you just want a bunch of free stuff argument. Can you flesh those out, and can you answer those?
I'll hit the free stuff argument first, because that's always the one that pisses me off the most.
Me too.
People don't understand it's not free stuff when you're getting it from the government. It's all through taxes. And yeah, I'm 16, but I still pay taxes. Not property taxes, thank God yet. But everybody contributes, and so you're just getting what you should be getting for your tax dollars when you see all these government programs. So I I quite honestly think the whole getting stuff for free thing is goofy.
Yes,
We're spending our money on us, the people, instead of spending it on $9 million a day fighting a war, dropping bombs on civilians in Syria.
what I would encourage you to do, though, is look at the hard numbers. Because the big issue for me being middle class is moving to the single payer system, right, for health coverage. Well, Sanders is going to increase taxes by 6.2% on the middle class. Okay, well, if I make $75,000 a year, that's on average a little over $9,000 in taxes that I pay, because the effective rate with deductions works out to be about 13.3%, right? So if it's $9,000, 6.2% of that is just a little bit over $600. As a worker, I pay $40 to $50 on average every week out of my paycheck towards medical coverage. That equates to $2,000 to $2,500. So if my taxes go up by $600 a year, but I'm not paying $40 to $50 a week in medical coverage, I'm actually saving $1,400. So for any of those points, any of these things that they bring up, if you have the hard and fast numbers to counter them and challenge them and bring up Google, just be like, yo, hey, the internet exists. Let's look it up together.
Remember, it's actually for taxes. It's reversed. It's 9% in total, and it's 2.5% on the individual, the employee, and it's 6.5% for the employer. So the company would be paying the 6.5% tax instead of the insurance premiums they have to pay for all their employees, and the employees, the worker, the average Joe, would get a 2.5% payroll tax increase.
Exactly. But the logic is there, right?
But even with that, Solomon, I saw you jump in here. But even with that, doesn't the person save money, and doesn't the company save
an incredible amount in every case? And I'm gonna stay out of Bernie because Bernie and Hillary is my topic next, and
Bernie's an
event. But
okay, so I'm gonna make you hold that thought right there to the wheels. Thank y'all so much. All right, come on, y'all. Raise your hand. Who's going to be next in the Progressive Army takeover of the Ben Dixon Show?
All
right, come on, PJ. You up?
PJ, go.
All right. For the record, I've been a little bit busy since this whole thing started up, so I'm going to be half reading some notes I took. I am going to be improvising a little as well. The article I took that's of interest to me, and I'm linking it in the chat right now because I have the admin powers for it, the mod powers. It's about a woman who went to a Trump rally wearing a hijab. And you could tell right there it's going to be a little dangerous. But actually, the whole purpose of the article is that they're not as rabid or ravenous as we might caricaturize them. She said when she was in line waiting to get in, the worst what she got was some stares and double takes, and one vendor walked close to her and yelled that he was selling bomb the hell out of ISIS T-shirts. So a little bit of hostility, but no one attacked her or tried to kick her out. She actually made it through the whole thing. I'm going to be reading two little segments from this, and I'm going to make my point. She writes about Trump. This is what she took away from it. Quote, to Trump and his supporters, Asian countries have dumped their goods in America and almost bankrupted our country by causing our trade deficit. Mexico won't keep illegals, who are the source of Americans' drugs, on their side of the border. And of course, Muslims have always been fighting us and come from countries populated by ingrates who are unwilling to pay for the wars that we started on their behalf. But solving our trade deficit isn't as simple as ending the supply of cheap Asian goods that Americans so happily consume. Mexico is not going to pay us to build us a wall. The rest of the world will not stand by and let the U.S. seize Iraq's oil fields and thus control a significant supply of the world's oil. Trump supporters, though, love him for his outrageous suggestions. It provides them with a sense of empowerment and control. And his lack of specificity allows for each person to hear what they want to hear. End quote for now. So the entire thing to say is that obviously on our current social strata, like the way that we talk as normal people, they sound crazy, they sound deluded, but they're still people. She makes the point that there's a reason, she's rationalizing why some people would fall for stuff like that. And I understand the message, but this is where I disagree with her and I make my point. She says, people like me keep thinking and hoping that Trump supporters will all go away eventually. We cannot continue to believe that they represent a fringe group of people and that their candidates can never be elected to a major role of government. We need to see them and listen to them and disagree respectfully. We need to, as Americans, begin talking to and not at one another. Wow. And that's where it falls apart for me. Because the issue I have is this article, the point that she makes, I understand she's trying to reach an olive branch out, but it excuses the small-mindedness that Trump supporters those supporters and the leaders who deliberately take advantage of it. Like, it excuses that small-mindedness. Having a slogan or a scapegoat won't make our problems go away. This is me talking. I know it looks like I'm reading because I took notes. A crazy thing to have someone to bomb or someone to dehumanize shouldn't excuse the public from being educated. And why this bothers me so much is that it's hypocritical. In the same way that conservatives, libertarians, Republicans, or nationalists have seek a work hard story, a bootstrap story. You know, you started from the bottom, etc. And that's what validates you. And so when they hear about welfare queens, when they hear about immigrants and poor people and all that stuff, they happily shut the crap on them. But we can't let them get away with that in terms of education. We can't let them get away with that in terms of foreign policy and thinking that the rest of the world is so easy that we can just find someone to blame or find someone to imprison or find someone to kick out. It doesn't work that way. We can't excuse them from nuance, because that's what they're doing right now. They are taking the easy way out. They're letting politicians like Trump give them an easy answer, and all they need to do is show support or give money. They don't have to think, and that's what's so toxic to me about this whole Trump thing. And that's why, as a whole, I can't agree with this article, because if we need to start talking to them like humans, they got to start acting like humans, because they're being tribal primates. They're just looking for someone to attack, and that, as a society, that's not how it works. All right.
Oh, okay. Can I jump in here for a second on the Trump thing?
Come on, Bam.
Everyone wants to talk.
All right, I'm sorry for taking so much.
I just want to say, and I'm with you, but I just want to point out the fact that these people existed before Trump showed up. Trump is an opportunist.
True, yeah.
And these people they've always been there. They've always been out there. Now they just have a leader to get behind. And he's just filling a niche that was sitting there just almost ravenously waiting for something that they could glom onto to push their ideas. So I really think we get into this habit of thinking that these are Trump's supporters, that like Trump is the one that caused this, as opposed to Trump responding to these people and jumping in there where he knew he had an opportunity. I mean, I very well could see Trump jumping in there, getting his 4 years of presidency in, making laws that makes it very easy for him to make an easy buck, and he's out of there. But we're still going to have this mass of people who think that the same way that they do now. They didn't just start this with Trump. He didn't do this. And I think we need to stay clear on that.
To quickly respond, I do agree with you. I was using Trump mainly because that's what the article focused on. That was her experience, and it's our experience that the Trump supporters are the ones being the most physically violent. But what I'm saying is, as a whole, these kinds of people who are so easily led, we should open a dialogue with them, but we can't let them control the conversation that to demonize other people, to have like an easy excuse that it's China, that it's Muslims, that it's Mexican. We have to be strong. We have to be firm with them. We can't let them just act like animals in a conversational sense.
And I think I was just responding to the easily led part, because I don't feel like they're being led. I think they are doing the leading. And that was my only point. But hey, sorry.
Let me throw a question out there to you, PJ. If this is where we're going, if the whole idea is that we're gonna be tough, how do we do that and still be caring and respectful, or is the two things not mutually? It doesn't matter.
I'm sure you. Go ahead.
Please.
Sorry.
Oh, please.
No, I was just gonna say, you can still educate people without being a jerk about it. It's just that, as me and a couple of other people have pointed out, whenever there's an issue and then a Republican leader, like people running for the GOP candidacy, they throw out an easy scapegoat almost all the time. Random example that comes to mind being the Planned Parenthood shooter, and Ted Cruz almost immediately saying it was some transgender liberal who shot up Planned Parenthood. And that was completely wrong. But that's the thing.
It wasn't me, I swear to God.
But that's the thing. Well, you're in New York. You're not in California or wherever.
Hold on. Remember, Will could be anywhere.
I got it. You said it's 601. But no. Getting serious. It's that more often than not, it's diversionary. It's anytime a Republican or an extreme right wing gets challenged, they tend to go to diversionary distraction tactics. Well, what about X, Y, or Z? Don't focus on this. And that's at like the heart of the issue, is that they are excused from letting their own views be challenged. They're excused. That's what they do. Like that's like their MO in terms of arguing. Like, well, my problem might be bad to you, but look at this other thing that we should both agree is worse. And I don't know how. I don't run like a debate class, but we have to.
Actually, I think they call those things pivots, PJ, and that's what you do when people bring up stuff that you don't want to talk about, you pivot so you don't talk about the thing that you're weak at. And so what's happening here in this political structure right now, this is the norm. And this is what I think is creating the opportunity for a person like Bernie who won't go negative, who struggles for not being so nice. I almost wanted Bernie to quit. Would you quit hugging Hillary and letting her off the hook? Let her find her own hook to get off.
There's plenty of places where you see, CNN or something try to have him go at Hillary, and ask him, personal questions about her, and he won't do it. He just says, I'm not going there. I'm keeping it factual. I'm keeping it where it has to be, where people care. This isn't reality TV.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think that what we have here is that we have a serious issue here in this country where we are becoming nativists. We are becoming nationalists, and it's because people are hurting right now. And when people hurt, they look for something, and I'm going to accept your answer, PJ. They look for an easy solution, not a difficult one. So I think you're onto something right there. I don't know how do we have the dialogue. I believe some of it you have to do what Will said. You have to use numbers and you have to use logic. But I'm always of the meaning that I believe you move a lot of it with the heart. Will, you want to say something? Come on in.
Crush them, and leave nothing left.
His name is not Will. His name is in the name of the show. But we will have to put him in timeout right now. All right, well done, PJ. Thanks for sharing your article. All right, Solomon, we're going to go with you, and we're going to let Will bring up the rear because he says he's going to tie it all together and put a bow on it for us.
Good, because I can't go after someone who's doing hope because I'd kind of ruin it.
Where's your picture? I can't see you. Where's your picture?
You can't talk until you turn your camera.
I don't see it.
I have a giant headache. I'm laying on my bed right now, and I need some ginger ale.
We can't see your headache. Okay.
Come on, Solomon, man. We ain't going to make you laugh too hard because we don't want the throbs to come back.
If I could get a lamp in here and get my desk cleaned, I'll do it tomorrow. I promise. But I'm lazy right now.
You asked Ben what he put me through to get here on camera. You asked him what I had to change through my Superman moment in the phone booth.
Ben, what did you do to her?
I'm not. Hey, I didn't do anything to her. Right? I made some suggestions to her on how it could be very easy for her to be ready for camera.
Wow, that defense.
Heavy on the word easy.
I harassed him all day yesterday to help me with my articles, and just kept saying, Pam, you need to get on Ben Dixon show.
That was some Ted Cruz level workarounds there by Ben.
Absolutely. Come on, Solomon. Tell us what you got, man.
Well, the reason I got this headache, I got it around 8:50, and it's not going away, and I kind of need you all to help me with this. Is what has happened in the Hillary campaign over the past hour. The transcript was released of Hillary's interview with Rachel Maddow that was going on while this was going on, and the GOP debate going on, which I really don't care about anymore, because I think what she just said is more damaging to the Democratic Party and more craven than anything the GOP could have just said. She essentially, through these two links I sent to a few of you on Twitter before, after her surrogates had been saying Bernie was leveling a negative ad on her because he was contrasting his Wall Street policy with hers. And Rachel asked her, what are you talking about, essentially, very nicely, after even Chuck Todd said that was not a negative ad, and this looks like them panicking and they should stop. And Hillary's argument for why it's a negative ad is basically it's not only an attack on her, and the quote starts now, I mean basically it's also a very direct criticism of President Obama, who, as you might recall, took a lot of money from the financial industry when he ran in 2008. That didn't stop him from fighting for the hardest regulations on Wall Street since the Great Depression, signing Dodd-Frank, getting everything he could out of the Congress at the time, so there is a difference. And continues on to not only say that Bernie is attacking Obama by fighting for more Wall Street reform, that anyone who suggests something beyond Dodd-Frank is attacking Obama on Wall Street reform. Wow. She did a similar attack with healthcare, saying she is genuinely saying that Bernie wants to destroy the CHIP program, TRICARE, Medicare, and health exchanges for the military, and the Affordable Care Act. And she didn't even try to use the 50-state argument. She basically used the Chelsea Clinton argument that he's maybe will replace it, or maybe he's just a Republican now and just wants to get rid of health care for everyone. And this is so disgusting to me that I didn't understand Bernie or bust people, but I don't think I can vote for her in the general election if she won after what she just did. And the last part would be, this being directly at Ben, that Bloomberg article that was mentioned by Chris Hayes right before this interview came out, specifically saying that the reason Elizabeth Warren has not endorsed Bernie, and most likely will not this primary, to the point where most in the Senate say it's either she won't endorse at all or it's a question of when she will endorse Hillary Clinton. Her reasoning is she does not see Bernie as a general election candidate. That's what the message they're getting from her staff, that she does not see him as someone who can win, and so she's not endorsing right now or essentially indefinitely. And after what Hillary Clinton just said, particularly on Wall Street, if she endorses Hillary Clinton, Elizabeth Warren is essentially dead to me from a progressive stance. After she flirted with the whole, oh, they're all fighting for Wall Street reform, but if Hillary Clinton is essentially saying that anyone levying for campaign finance reform or getting rid of getting tougher on Wall Street beyond Dodd-Frank is attacking Obama to try and create a wedge issue and a trap that she thinks she can set to make black voters who hear attack on Obama when they get to the South and will turn on a Bernie if he gets any momentum, if she thinks just destroying any progress in Wall Street regulation is worth protecting her stance with her lead in minorities in this election, then she's not serious about Wall Street reform at all. And she doesn't care and has no intention of doing it. So, one, how am I supposed to support anything about Hillary Clinton's campaign? And how is Elizabeth Warren justifying any of this in her staying quiet?
Hold that thought right there, Solomon. We got Patrick from Pembroke Pines on the phone. Patrick, welcome to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Go ahead with your question, my friend.
Patrick, you're live on the air now. Go for it.
Hey, guys. Good to be with you and good to be watching the show. Just want to make a quick comment on what Solomon is saying, because he's really hitting the point. And Ben, this is just to support what you've been saying for some time. you warned us that Hillary Clinton cannot be the standard bearer of progressivism.
Mm-hmm.
And we are watching the redefinition of progressivism before our eyes. Because I actually watched the interview live, and the same thing caught my attention. And this is something that is really bothering me, because as a progressive, I'm watching this shift to being accepted. And I'm a little at a loss as to how you combat that. So that was just my question I want to throw out there, and I'll just listen for your response.
Thank you so much, Patrick, for your call. Solomon, I'm going to let you jump in. You got a response from my friend Patrick?
Thanks.
Yeah, I have to say, particularly the fact that Rachel Maddow did not push back on the absurdity of those two statements is really sad. She brought Chris Hayes on afterwards, and they talked about the kind of weirdness of it, but not addressing that clear falsehood that Bernie wants to essentially rip up the U.S. healthcare system and regress us in healthcare, and while touting her own path to universal healthcare when she herself has no plan for universal healthcare she's put out is ridiculous.
Just one quick question. When has Bernie ever said that he wants to break up anything other than the banks? That's just...
Yeah.
That's well said. That's well said. But I think this goes back to something that PJ was saying a little earlier about how at times we can throw a false narrative out there, and the false narrative can begin to catch traction. And this is a known Clinton issue, y'all. We remember when this same thing happened, I think South Carolina, a young senator named Barack Obama, and how Clinton was upset over what had taken place. So don't be surprised that she will go hardball on you, and I believe that's what she's doing now with Bernie, because she's understanding that if he continues to get momentum, this could be it for her, and it could be over faster than what she thinks. Solomon, you wanna come on and chime in on that?
Yeah, I'm just reading the tail end of that Wall Street thing before, and it's still shocking me. Like, just quoting.
Do me a favor, Solomon. I hate to cut you off, but I want you to read, and I'm looking at the quotes that you shared on Twitter. Could you read the portions that, because I think it's hard to believe, and we actually need to hear it.
So which one, the Wall Street or the healthcare one?
Both.
Both? Okay. No, well, I'll start with
where you guys are reading from? Where's the article posted at?
It was a live interview on MSNBC, but someone was given the transcript from it and shared it on Twitter, and I tweeted it to a couple people, including Ben.
What's your Twitter?
Delendarius, D-E-L.
I'm retweeting it now. I'll retweet it now.
Okay.
Thanks,
that's all I want. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead and read, Solomon.
So she responding to her question about to Rachel's question about the Wall Street ad and how the silliness of her surrogates going around all day and being laughed at by TV hosts by saying it's a negative ad. Her justification of it was, quoting here, it's basically, it's also a very direct criticism of President Obama, who, as you might recall, took a lot of money from the financial industry when he ran in 2008. That didn't stop him from fighting for the hardest regulations on Wall Street since the Great Depression, signing Dodd-Frank, getting everything he could get out of the Congress at the time. So there is a difference. I think that the president and many Democrats who support Dodd-Frank, we are fighting to prevent it from being turned back and eviscerated by the Republicans. Are saying, wait a minute, this is hard work. And what the president got done and what the Democrats who stood with him got done is a pretty important accomplishment if we're going to rein in the excesses on Wall Street. So it's a funny kind of charge. It's sort of a pox on all your houses for all the Democrats. And I think that's what's raised some eyebrows.
Wow.
That's the Wall Street path.
Hold that thought right there, Solomon. Ben, come on, man. Come on, give us something, man.
Yeah, I had to chime in on that. This is Hillary Clinton's equivalent of saying your mama. She is completely shitting on all of the Democratic progressive movement to deflect from her, point to Obama, to indict Bernie Sanders, and she's willing to scorch the entire earth just to not pay the reality that she has been in bed with Wall Street. I mean,
And she thinks this will work.
She is literally, she's playing. I'm gonna let me say it like this. She is playing a racially tinged game here. And anyone who listens to me knows I'm the last person to jump to race first. I like to unpack something. Her strategy here is to aggravate the black vote who, no matter what, we will defend President Obama, right? So if she can make it seem as though Bernie is attacking President Obama, she knows that she is going to wedge the black vote away from Bernie already more than what it already is, right? So she's doing this for no other reason than to divide and keep any potential Bernie gaining ground in the black community. She's trying to tear that apart. So this is a very strategic bit of racial to using Wall Street and basically saying your mama, pointing back towards Barack Obama. Listen, I'm going to go listen to.
Hold on, someone needs to mute their mic. We're getting some feedback when Ben is speaking. So please, if you would do that, appreciate it. Come on, Ben, finish up, man.
I have to go listen to this interview for myself, right? It's not that I'm not saying that I don't believe you, Solomon, at all. I believe you. I take you at your word, but I have to hear it for myself. And if this is the case, and I want you to read the next one. I want you to read the healthcare one. If this is the case, then I am going to shift from being Bernie or whoever's the most progressive, and then we'll come together if we have to just to beat conservatism. I will shift from that to saying Hillary Clinton can never spend a day in the White House if she is willing to do a scorched earth policy with progressivism, with Barack Obama, and use the black vote and our love for Barack Obama as a political football. Go ahead and read the rest of it.
Okay. I'll say two things, then read the healthcare thing, and then I think Will says he wants to chime in, and I'm very excited to hear what he has to say regarding this, as well as everybody else. But the two things I'd say is this reveals two things. One, there's most likely some internal polling in the Hillary Clinton campaign saying that they're losing the black vote in South Carolina. That when they triangulate everything. So everything she says, you should understand. One, when it's something that racially tinged, they wouldn't say that if they didn't feel like they need to. So the South Carolina poll for YouGov is probably going to come out this next Wednesday, and it's probably going to show some slipping in the black vote, and so she feels she needs to do this. The second thing is that for bringing up Obama is that she feels she can predict, because Bernie is so honest and honestly predictable, that she can predict that Bernie is going to stick to his guns and say, yes, I disagree with the president because I feel we should go further than Dodd-Frank, and yes, I disagree with taking Wall Street money no matter who it is, and she's going to say, look, see, he doesn't like Obama. That's the trap she's trying to lay, and she's trying to use his honesty to be predictable and make sure that's the response she gets. She's laying that groundwork, and the fact that Rachel didn't see that and didn't push back is really sad.
That's disappointing because you know what? I'm going to be quiet. I promise you. I'm sorry. I'm out of order. Forgive me. But I'll never get an interview with a major politician because I would have called her on that right then and there, and that's the #1 problem with our media. Okay, I'm muting my mic. Jay.
All right, come on now, Solomon. If you would,
Okay.
please go ahead and read the medical portion of it, and then we're going to get Will in here, and then we're going to be mindful of the time.
Yep. Okay. So the second portion, this is part of what she said in healthcare, just as much as they could screenshot. We've been trying to get something like this done since Harry Truman. I worked really hard on that in 1993 and 1994, the year that Bernie sent that campaign picture out, just back to quote, and I was thrilled when the president signed the Affordable Care Act. Now I expect the Republicans to do what they're trying to do, repeal it. They did it last week. Thankfully, the president could veto it. But I'm a little surprised to be having this debate. It's really a very general debate when it comes to Senator Sanders about, no, we need to have single-payer system. Well, what does that mean? Now, the only clue that I can find, because he hasn't laid out a plan, is to go back and look at the bills that he's introduced 9 different times. And it's a bit concerning to me because it would basically end all the kinds of health care we know. Medicare, Medicaid, the CHIP program, which is Children's Health Initiative Program, I think. Children's Health Insurance, TRICARE for the National Guard, military, Affordable Care Act exchange, policies, employer-based policies, and et cetera, et cetera.
Wow. Wow, that is a lot in a little statement. But again, when you can't beat them one way, you will pull out all the stakes. And as Ben said, I can't think of a better word. Scorched earth is what they're after right now. If you didn't think that Hillary Clinton and her campaign wasn't afraid of Senator Sanders, well, guess what, folks? They're scared now. It's official. This has now become a political race. And our hope is that Bernie can offer some more Brooklyn out of them than Vermont. All right, Will, come on, bring it in. Unmute yourself, my friend.
We're working on it.
There you go.
This
right.
Will, right? I got
yes,
earlier.
yes.
I didn't realize there was another Will.
Older Will.
Old man Will. Old man Will. Wow, that's scary.
Old man Cahill.
Yep. Okay, so like this whole time, all I'm hearing is Hillary Clinton saying Bernie wants to do away with the Affordable Care Act. Okay, well, based on what he's running on, getting corruption out of politics, I almost don't mind if he gets rid of it completely because I know he's going to replace it with a different system that works better. The Affordable Care Act was crafted in front of some of the leaders of the pharmaceutical industrial complex, and they got a lot of sweetheart deals. That's why there's a lot of good that came from it, and there's some bad too. I mean, like, that was my understanding. Maybe I'm propagandized. But it almost seems like the corporate influence, the money that's in politics, that was accepted by Obama, that was accepted by Hillary Clinton, that was accepted by Bill Clinton, and every politician going back for the last 50 years, we get these half-measure legislations that will kind of solve problems. But you know what? We can all bash them into the ground the next election season because the sweetheart deals that were tacked onto those are the ones that they that they have issue with. When you're trying to propagandize people, you focus on the bad and you ignore the good. I've said before, I have issues with Obama. None of them are any of the ones that they talk about on Fox News. The man shaves, he drinks beer, he's not a Muslim, obviously. But my article that I brought up, that I don't know if we have time to talk about, there's actually a transgender woman killed every 29 hours in the world. And how I can tie this all back to everything is the fact that people who are transgender can hide in that closet and not present themselves to the world that way. So if it's only 1% of the world that identifies that way, and one of that 1% gets killed every 29 hours, how much more percentage of people are sitting here like me, wearing pink pajama flannel pants, like that would go out in the world? And the reason why it's not something that is acceptable in our society is because we live in a patriarchy.
Will,
I have going too far to the left.
No,
I was going to bring
no,
it up.
I need you. I have to cut you off because you have this static in your microphone. I need you to take the strap of your microphone off of the microphone itself and off of the.
Is that better?
Oh, that's like 100% better.
Okay, so bringing this home, gender, race, all of these other things are all social constructs. If my skin were a shade darker, they could pit me against somebody who's like Mario Batali, who's a red-headed, very white-skinned Northern Irish person, and both of us have Irish heritage. Since the beginning of time, I think they take labels and apply them to us to get us to infight, but there's very real issues on certain sides of those labels, whether it's dark skin or it's men that express feminine tendencies, which gender's a spectrum. Sexuality is actually a spectrum as well, and we either fall on one side of it or the other. How far to that side you fall is how they can propagandize you into hating your neighbor, and it obfuscates the fact that basically we're just getting screwed by them anyways. So, but yeah, the corruption that exists feeds that narrative. They pay for those labels to be sold to us by our media, and then they make the sweetheart deals with the politicians that they also paid to get into office to continue those narratives, and then we have the messes that we have. And they also pay off scientists, so now we have lead everywhere. But bigger than lead, we have fluoride everywhere. We don't know what fluoride's doing to us. And maybe that's tinfoil hat stuff kind of right now, but was the lead issue a tinfoil hat issue in the 1950s and 60s? Is climate change a real issue? Because there are scientists that are paid to deny climate science right now. The corruption exists on every single level of society, and they have propagandized fear in order to pit you against your neighbor and control our vote so that we keep voting for establishment politicians. So if it's not Bernie, it's Bernie or bust for me. And if Bernie says, you know what, you write me in, I won't take it, I support Hillary, I'll vote Jill Stein. So that's kind of how I wanted to tie that together. I didn't really do a good job. So, but
well, you know
it's all corrupt.
First and foremost, man, I want to make sure I say this. You know, everything in me wanted to say a joke, but when you're talking about life and death, I can't play. To me, all life is valuable. And,
Yes.
and so I want to make sure that regardless of whether it's black lives in the streets of our urban settings or transgender people around the world, the taking of life for no other reason but difference and fear is wrong. And so I don't ever want to subscribe to anything like that. I believe that life is valuable. You got one, and I hope that you use it to the best of your ability, regardless of whether if I agree with what you do with it or not. That my agreeing has nothing to do with the value of an individual's life. So I just wanted to put that out there, Will, and on a serious note, before I talk about you being Walter Cronkite with that cigarette.
Yeah,
Will, as we are the Progressive Army, I am going to make sure that the next time we have a progressive takeover, that you bring the fake cigarette that look like candy and let that candy puff smoke come out, because we can't be having incorrigible stuff going on while we have other people online.
You're absolutely right. That's this. You are absolutely right.
Dude, there's kids here. Come on.
Yeah, thank you, Will. I needed you to say that.
You're absolutely right. This was sold to me as cool when I was 11, and now that I'm 30, it's not cool at all. It's killing me. This is suicide one pack at a time.
We're gonna
William, what kind of example are you setting for little Will? Haven't we had this conversation before?
Come on.
I'm setting an example. I am
Yeah,
a
man, he's your
cautionary
mini-me.
tale. I'm a cautionary tale for little Will. That's what I am.
Here we go. We're going to help you out, man. We're going to help you out in a lot of ways. You first things first. Put that one out. Put that one out, because I have little Davin over. I think not Germany. Where is Davin listening from? I have a young kid. I think he's under 7 years old who listens and watches.
Sorry.
So we're gonna keep it as positive as we can. And I can stop talking because JP is doing the job. Go for it.
Okay, so look, y'all, I know we definitely went into overtime today, but I felt that it was important that we did so. Again, one of the things that Ben likes to do when we have these hangouts is give everybody, 15, 20 seconds to just give us one closing thought before we jump off the air tonight and we go and we find out and see with our own eyes how sick Hillary Clinton really is. So in my paradigm of being as chauvinistic as I am, I'm going to start with Pam.
I don't know what to say except we need to be more cohesive. We need to be louder. We need to be willing to push back, and that's not what we don't do as progressives as much as we need to.
Thank you so much, Pam. Young Will.
Hey, so what we need to be doing is we need to be getting our vote out there. I've said this before. We're terrible at getting our vote out there right now, so we need to be going and registering voters and making sure that those people who register follow through, because that's how we're going to be winning this. I'm 16, I can't vote, but the way I've been voting is I've been getting people to sign up to vote. It's a one-page document. this happens to be sheet music, but it's a one-page document, and so it's not hard. That's how we're gonna win this.
I look forward to hearing how you teach me how to teach people how to sing to vote. Come on, PJ, give me your last 30 seconds, man. Give me something good. Can you guys hear PJ?
No, we can't hear you, PJ.
No, I cannot.
Okay, we got you now. I thought we did.
Oh,
still don't have you.
Ben, come on.
Oh, we got you now.
Got me?
We got you.
It's basically the theme that I call in every time. It has to do with logic and truth. We have to confront hypocrisy and idiocy, and we have to be smart about putting forth our message, not just putting forth our own agenda, but making sure other people understand why what they're thinking is wrong in terms of truth and how to make ourselves better. We can't let people wallow in their own ignorance. That's part of what we need to do as progressives, not just have a shouting match or let people close their ears. We have to open their minds, hearts, and eyes to everything that we say. And that's pretty much it.
It's a good word, PJ. Come on, Solomon. I hope your head feeling better.
No, it is not, and I think that's why I'm not going to be nearly as positive as you guys are. I'm going to be fairly still upset. My final words are going to be: if Bernie loses the nomination, he should not endorse Hillary Clinton. If he wins the nomination, he should not have Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton be any of his surrogates. I don't care if Bill's the explainer-in-chief. He should not involve Clintonism in any way with his campaign. And I can't. If Ben after the show is going to watch the interview, I want to hear his words on it. And the last thing I'll say is, I just turned 20. This would be my first national election. I'm not putting my first vote for a Clinton after what's happened. I'm just not.
Wow. Well, thank you, Solomon. I didn't realize you were the second youngest person on the call, but hey, that's cool too, man. Welcome to the ability to vote. Come on, older Will. Give me your last thoughts.
Can you hear me okay still?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So my last thoughts are, yes, I still smoke cigarettes because when I was growing up, it was cool to smoke because that's what they sold us. And then I got hooked, and now I still do it. One issue at a time, though. We all know I have a drinking problem. I went to mental health on Monday. You know how long it's going to take before I can go see somebody? A month before I get into that appointment. What if the gun was in my hand today? That's the problem we face in America. There's too much bureaucracy. There's too much corruption. It exists on every level. And to my point on transgenderism, what happens to the least of these happens to all of us. I can't be myself. I can hide it, kind of, the same way that people of color, they can't hide it. So, like, everybody's interconnected, and the 90% has more in common with each other than the top 10%. The Clintons have more in common with the Saudi princes than they do with you or I. There's no reason to vote for them. So.
Wow. That's good work, Will. All right, now then I go to the namesake of the show. Ben, come on, give us something.
All right, folks. I'm not the last word. JP is going to be the last word, but I want to say this. I work with some really, I have some really smart listeners, and each of you have contributed something tonight that is valuable. And well, I'll just leave it there. Everyone contributed something that was valuable. I want to say this as we build this out. I'm building something. We're a ragtag team of brilliant people, right? We really have some smart things to contribute to the conversation that other people are not saying. You can't turn to any other channel on television or on YouTube and get this type of analysis from people who are just sitting in my chat room listening to me talk, right? So that's why I'm trying to empower everybody to have their own voice, to have their own place they can write. Everyone can express their thoughts because for the most part, I would say 9 times out of 10, I agree with your thoughts or at least agree with your analysis. And then that one other time out of 10 will make me cringe, but I can live with that, you know? I can live with that. I also want to say this about young Will. Will, we're gonna You're not going to have to work too hard to pay for your way through college. You are an awesome writer, and we're going to get people listening and reading your stuff, and you're going to get some paychecks to pay your way through college. So I want you guys, if you don't do it for anybody else, we're going to build this thing so young guys like that who are 16 and have this unbelievable talent at 16 can really not only do well for themselves, but share their thoughts and their insights to actually help the rest of us along the way. So that's all I have to say, and I'll see you guys on Monday. It's in your hands, JP. And also, everybody give a hand to my main man, JP Rankin, also known as Patrick. No, seriously, everybody give him a hand.
Can I ask you fellas to do one thing for me since we're running late anyway?
Sure.
Please.
My birthday is Saturday, and I would really like for all of you all to sing happy birthday to me on air. You don't have to do it now. You can get together.
Hold on, man. I want to
Let's do it now.
Let's get it over with.
3.
Oh, good.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, dear Pam.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, fellas. Thank you so much.
I muted everybody. Hey, you guys, we're hanging loose tonight, but we had some really good conversations. Pam, happy birthday in advance. JP, it's in your hands.
Hey, look, I just wanted to thank everybody for chiming in, for bringing their heart and bringing their passion to the Progressive Army Takeover tonight. Thank you, Ben, for giving us the opportunity to laugh, but also to be serious about some of the issues that are out here that we are to face. And the beautiful thing about this, folks, is we're just regular people. We're just regular people who have a heart, who are given an opportunity to share our voice and our words to make a difference in this world in which we live in. So my hope is that you too get the courage to speak what's on your mind, that what you have to say matters, that what you think is valid, and you have something to bring to the table. Don't forget, if you want to help out the BPD show and you got some talents and gifts that we may not know about, shoot me an email at johnpatrankin@gmail.com. That's JOHNPATRANKIN@gmail.com, and we'll see how we can get you connected to the Progressive Army. With that being said, y'all, hey, look, it's Thursday, and for us, it's got to be Friday night. So go ahead, enjoy your weekend. Have a great one. Ben will get a video out on Hillary tomorrow, and we will see y'all on Monday. Peace and blessings.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Crazy mother.
If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.
That's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen. There might be an after party in YouTube. I don't know, but Spreaker's over.
Can I just say, Ben, the new T-shirt needs to be "Don't smoke, Will," instead of "Don't cuss." He told me not to cuss. I'm not cussing anymore. I won't smoke on there.
Basically, I'm as square as it really come, right? So cussing, like when I say shit and damn, is like a really big deal for me, right? So just imagine when you're hanging out with Ben, you're hanging out with the coolest lame guy you would ever hang out with. Carry yourself accordingly.
Yeah. But it is true, though. When we were younger, cigarettes, the Marlboro Man was so cool.
Yeah.
And I got hooked at 11. That's 20 years ago.
No, remember the Marlboro Man was cool for you. We smoked cool.
What did you say? What did you smoke, JP?
We smoked cool.
I smoked too.
Marlboro Man. Marlboro Man rode a horse.
Tommy Chong rode a van made out of weed. So, yeah, I'm right with you, bro.
Hey, man, look, man, I appreciate y'all. Great job, everybody. Great job tonight, man. Absolutely, man. Looking forward to doing this again soon, y'all.
I'll let your boy.
Deuces.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
My
guys.
song was beautiful.
It was awesome.
Beautiful-ish.
It was more beautiful that you were putting your hands up like, no, don't sing to me right now. And we
After you asked for it, right? Yeah.
Once it started, I realized that maybe I had gone over a cliff that I couldn't come back from.
Honey, we can get a convertible, hold our hands together like this, and drive right over that